Hi, everyone. I'm Sonna Johns. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. Thank you so much for listening on Up Close and Empowered, where my intention is to inspire you, to awaken you to your true power, to live a life of love, inner peace, fulfillment, and success. So I want to give special thanks before we begin today to those who have reached out to me. And for those who want to reach out, you can reach me at sonnalife.com. That's SONNALIFE.com. So today, we have a special show. We are going to embark on a journey with my next guest that begins with, well, her story is quite extensive, and we're going to try to condense it in this show, and hopefully it will inspire some of you when you hear some of the resilience and the courage that my next guest really has within her. So today, like I said, we'll embark on this journey that begins with trauma. It led into an extensive career in marketing and sales and brand strategy spanning 3 decades. She has worked in the automotive field, entertainment, fashion, nonprofit spaces as an entrepreneur, and has been extremely successful in that arena. Now, I've known Jessie for, I'm going to say about 9 years, maybe
Yeah, we're getting there.
9 years. And we met at a gala. And I remember when I met her, I was immediately drawn to her because really you can't not be drawn to her.
Aw.
She has this captivating energy about her. She's beautiful, she's energetic, she's very engaging, which no doubt plays a role in her ability to connect with others and make a positive impact, which she does really everywhere she goes and everything she touches. So she's the one that will get you out on the dance floor if you're not dancing. She's the one that will introduce you to everybody and make sure that you are so welcome. And she's an amazing cook. She'll have you over and you know make this big festive meal for you. And she's just a very compassionate person. She really is. She has a big heart. She's full of love. She's full of energy. And today she's going to tell us what her focus is on now, because she's going to take us back through her story and through all of the stages and the steps through her life. And then we'll land on where her focus is today. We're going to hear about her obstacles, the challenges, some of her darkest, most difficult times in her life, but how she always seemed to find a way. Today, we're going to talk about her transformational turn. What was the shift? And how it's turned to more of a fulfilling and simple way of life and impacting the lives of others, I might add. So not only will she share her journey, but all of her experiences and how they shaped her into her purpose of where she is today. In 2021, she made a life-altering change by returning to school for psychology and diving deep into a career in behavioral mental health. Like, wow. To go back to school at this stage of the game, that's mind-boggling. It really is. I commend you for that. So I know that you made a decision to target your focus beyond the glittery landscape of the galas, the balls, and all of the big life, right? Which is great, but we all have a transformative time, and we're all led to our purpose, and that's where we are today. And I know that your purpose is devoted to the mental health arena, which you'll have a chance to tell our listeners about that more today. But I just want everybody to know that this is not only at times an unbelievable story when you hear some of the things that she'll share, because she is very vulnerable. She shares her vulnerability. She's not afraid to share, which I love about her. But it's very inspiring. But more than anything, it is a true testament of resilience. And I just have to lead with that. But her resilience is off the charts. So I want to welcome you here today, Jessie. Jessie Elliott, welcome to my show.
Wow, Sana, I'm sitting here getting all like tingly on the inside. I love you and we've been friends a long time, and I'm just so honored that you wanted me here today.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's really good timing because I'm just plateau of contentment. And I think we talked about happiness before. You know how people are always talking about, what is it going to take to make you happy? What
Right.
makes you happy? And I feel like being happy is one of the hardest things in the world to do. And I'm perfectly good being content because like with bursts of happiness, like little moments in silver boxes, you know, it's a lot of pressure to be happy all the time. Because believe me, I tried, doesn't work.
Right. And
So it's like, go ahead. Yeah.
no, and that's a true test of, of transformation and progress and personal growth. I mean, to be able to be in that space of being consciously aware of your joy and the peace that you have now come to realize, which, we'll talk about that because I know that you've lived a busy life at sometimes frantic or sometimes frantic life as well. And now it seems like you've stepped into this other chapter that's completely different than the old chapter. And I know you have nothing bad to say about your old chapter because it's all part of our life. It's all what shaped us of who we are today. So take us back, Jessie. I want everybody to kind of get an idea of, what it was like growing up, where you're from, and just take us through some of that process so we know where it all started.
Well, I was born in South Korea, and nowadays we refer to the space that my mother was in called the comfort women. And, you know, Americans have different, I mean, people in general have different terms for it. But, you know, I mean, I hate to use the word prostitution because it just automatically sends an air of judgment to the situation my mother was in. But there were thousands of women between Korea and Japan that were forced in these comfort camps, and they were comfort women. They were young women who were either ran away from home, had hard home lives or whatever. So they would end up in these comfort camps or whatnot and be comfort, quote, comfort to the soldiers that would come through, mainly American GIs. And I was born in one of those comfort homes to a comfort woman. And my mother, and my father, who I found much later in life. So I didn't really know his side of the story until I was 50.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom and I stayed, you know, whether we slept on this under the bridge or she had a little money that we could go in a little boarding house because that when she wasn't working, I wasn't allowed, like I was with her. But when she had to leave, she would get dressed up and be in these places where comfort women were to comfort the soldiers. And I was with her until I was about 8 years old. And I never went to school. She just, I don't know how, now that I look back on it, because I'm this bougie American now. I look back on it and there was never a time that I was dirty. There was never a time that my hair wasn't combed. Like my mom did everything she could to keep us neat and tidy. Even, and I just had like one little bag of stuff. And by the time I was about 8, I had figured out that everybody was going to school but me. And I'm half Black, so I look like I'm not 100% Korean. And so the prejudices and the bigotry that came from the ignorance of the people back then, um, it was rough. And my mom always, always, no matter what, she would tell me, "You are so clever." My Korean name is Chorling. So when in Korean, when you call somebody like in a term of endearment, you add like a after their name. So my mom would be like, "Cholinga, Cholinga." Oh, that's how she called me. And she would always say that I was so clever and that I was so ipuda, that means pretty. And she's the only person that ever thought so. She was the only person that ever said so. Because out in the world, in the streets, and I was a scrappy little kid selling gum in the street when I couldn't find my mom, or, you know, my mom had a friend who had a child, and that little boy and I would steal food, and we just looked like little raggedy muffins, but clean.
Right.
So when I was 8, I mean, I was hounding her about going to school all the time. And so she said, "Well, we're going to go on a trip." It was my birthday. And we got on the bus and with everything we owned. She had me put on all my clothes, which wasn't much, but I just remembered I had on long underwear and put on black tights and then white tights over that and a pair of pants. So I was a scrawny little thing. But we got on the bus and we went across the country, which South Korea is not very big. So it's about the size of Florida. So it seemed like forever though, no air conditioning. We're in this old rickety bus and we get to this old military town. And I had never been outside of Seoul before. So I'd never seen the mountains the way I saw them that day. And it was at my grandmother's house. It was my mother's mother. and I had never met her. And I tell you, Sana, it's because of those two women. Like we talk about resilience, we talk about courage. It's because of those two women that I have that like burning inside of me forever.
Wow.
And I, the very first time I met my grandma, she was a tiny, tiny little thing, but at the same time, she was a giant. And Korean people are not very affectionate. So it wasn't like she gave me a big hug or anything like that. She just kept petting my hair and pinching my face. And yeah, we spent a couple of days there, and it was my birthday, like I said. And my mom said, I'm going to go to the store and I'll see you in a little bit. And I just was so enthralled with my grandmother sitting on a kitchen stoop, you know, helping her do vegetables and stuff. And she lived in a little bunker in the mountain. It was, I mean, the kitchen, if you want to call it that, it was like maybe size of a powder room with a big tub that she cooked there. And then she also would wash me there because we didn't have like a shower or anything. And then we had an outhouse. So I was with my grandma, and then my mom just didn't come back, and it's getting darker outside. I'm like, where is she? And my grandma's not saying much. And I already know better at this time to not to question too much, because all the ebbing and flowing my mom and I had to do to survive in Seoul. And I didn't say anything the next day either, but I'm going back to the bus stop like every day for like maybe almost a week, maybe not quite.
Wow.
And every day, like just thinking she's gonna be back. She's gonna come back. She's not gonna leave me here. I mean, I love it here, but she's not gonna go.
Right.
And my one day my grandma comes down and she sits down next to me and said, Chulinga, she's not coming back. And you're gonna live here with me and go to school. I had never disrespected my mom or any adults, because Korean children are raised to be extremely respectful of their elders. And I remember kicking and screaming, yelling and screaming until I just couldn't anymore. And my grandma, my little tiny grandma, somehow like got me up, patted my face, and we walked home. And I just lived with her from then until about the age of 11.
So
No,
when were you in the orphanage? Because I know that's a what sequence was that in? What age were you?
11 to 12. I was
Okay.
in
Okay. So
orphanage.
take us there, and then what happened after that?
After the orphanage,
Well, even the orphanage, like what was that like? How long were you there?
so I mean, I'm still, I mean, as I got older, I realized, because my mom and my grandma never wanted to give me up, because there would be these people coming through the village to, or in Seoul too, picking up mixed blooded kids and saying, hey, we're going to take them to America. And because a lot of those kids were thrown away, their families just didn't want to acknowledge them, you know, kind of that street rat mentality. And my mom and grandma were like, no, she's not going anywhere. She's living with us. But my uncle was molesting me, and I think my grandma knew it. And they just one day they're like, okay, you're going to America now. And then so I ended up at the orphanage at 11. And my mom tried to visit me once while I was there, and I was so angry with her I wouldn't see her. And because by the time I got to the orphanage, it was a Catholic run orphanage, specifically for Amerasian children. So the priest who ran it was also molesting a lot of us. And there's actually a litigation they're looking to do with that. If he came from Maryknoll Seminary in Boston. So I won't get into that too much, but he was a monster of a human being. But we were all so grateful that, you know, we were called the dust of life. Kamdingi is a translates to black puppy to mixed children. Nobody wanted us. We're stupid, dirty, ugly, you name it. That was us. So we're in this place where we're getting fed every day, wearing clean clothes, and there's other people that look like me. I had never seen other kids that look like me.
Wow.
And it was just it was a mixed bag, really. So, but again, you know, my uncle was molesting me, and I knew, even though my brain didn't fully understand sexuality as we do as adults, right? But that was a part of my mom's life, and I just knew that when uncles came, we got to go in and eat in a restaurant. So I always had this mentality that when men come and we use our body or our energy as currency, something good comes. And that's a normal exchange to me at that time.
Right.
And
Right.
I figured it out since then. But so the orphanage, it was, you know, it was rough. There were dark moments, but there was also brilliant moments
Mhm.
because I saw other kids that looked like me and I made connections. As a matter of fact, some of us are connected here in Michigan. We connected as adults. It's the
Wow.
craziest.
Yeah.
And I count that as like one of my greatest blessings in life.
So then
So
skip ahead, when did the adoption take place? Like, when did you take us through that process?
I came to America January 23rd, 1982. I was 12.
Okay.
And ironically, that was the day, January 23rd is my son's birthday, and I adopted him. So, I mean, he's 20, but isn't that kind of funny?
It is. It
Yes, it is.
definitely is.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking like when you were coming over to the States? I mean, this must have been like a completely different world to you. Like what was going on in your head at 12 years
I
old?
was determined that I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer or a movie star because I was told those are the people that make the money. And I just had it in my mind that I was going to have my grandma and everybody come here
Mm,
and just my family. It never occurred to me that like I was going to a brand new family. I kind of thought about it in like a sponsorship way. And I certainly didn't think that they would change my name, but they did. It was like a blizzard. They came to pick me up in Chicago. My adoptive family, my adoptive mother was blonde, and my adoptive father was a real tall, dark-haired, bearded lumberjack kind of guy. And they
mm.
had two boys that were younger than me. So they came to pick me up at O'Hare Airport, and immediately I was like, "Are you sure I'm supposed to go here? Because I thought I was going to Los Angeles." I thought I was going to palm trees and movie stars. What's going on? Because they came in this big parkas and moon boots, and I just it was like nothing. And then we went in and we got in a Subaru in a snowstorm, and it just wasn't anything like how I imagined America to be.
Right, right. Well, let's hold that thought for a minute, Jesse, because we're going to take a quick break. And on the other side of the break, I want to skip forward to like the next significant part of that time in your life, if it was in your teens, and then tell us a little bit about your marriage, because a lot of this, for the listeners, all of these things that she's going through, it has led her to her getting into the mental health arena. It's all going to make sense as we move through the show, and it's really a beautiful purpose that she's devoted to now. So we'll hold that thought. We'll be right back after this short break. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Up Close and Empowered. I'm Sonna Johns talking to Jessie Elliott, and she is talking about her story and taking us through the many different chapters of her life that has led her to where she is today. So we left off with the adoption process, coming over from Korea to the States at age 12. And, what were you going through as a 12-year-old little girl? Didn't know your dad, your mom left, and, she had to make a living and provide, and she left you with your grandma, and then you got adopted, came over to the States. Like, what was going through your head? Like, how were you?
Well, first, America wasn't nearly as what I thought it was going to be. But really, what was going through my head was survival, because it's always at the forefront. Survive and be what they need me to be so that I can eat, I can stay in this warm house. I mean, I remember I fell off the bed so many times because I had never slept on a bed before, and they had gotten me a little twin bed. It was adorably done and whatnot, but I just kept falling off. But it was really like learning English because I didn't speak it, learning to use the actual toilet because I didn't really use a toilet ever. It was always an outhouse. And you learning to eat with the fork,
Right.
and just just under like getting used to American food in general, and just the whole like the sense of having to me being who I am, who as I came was not good enough. So they
Right.
changed my name. They right away they took me to a black hair salon back in the day when they used to use lye for your hair. So I would have these big scabs in my head because they insisted on straightening my hair. And I didn't even know that was a thing that was possible. So I'm like, well, this is what I have to do to fit in. This is what I have to be good enough, what I have to do to be good enough for my new parents. And the new name thing like really jarred me. It took me forever to get used to it. but I watched a lot of Sesame Street, a lot of McDonald's commercials, and eventually picked up English and made a couple friends that who are still very close to me till this day. Hey, Raquel. She and I talk about, I mean, she remembers meeting me at school thinking that I was just shy because I didn't talk much. It's because I didn't speak English. But
But
yeah, she's still like, we still talk almost every day, and like it's a great, great love, like
right,
sister love life. But yeah, so I made friends, and I just was like, you were like, I mean, when you were introducing me, you're like, she's that girl that's pulling people on the dance floor, the whole nickname of Sunshine. And it just, I didn't know I had a chance or choice to be anything else. Like, be the sunshine, be the one that people want at a party, be the wild child, but be educated, still be classy. And that just was a narrative from the get-go. And I
right.
just thrived in it.
Okay, so take us from there. So then you went to school, you worked in
Yeah.
the business world, marketing, which
Yeah. I went.
take us to the other side of your life where it got to be a little bit more fun and interesting.
Yeah, I went through school. I went to art school, and then I met my first husband, who I fell like so in love with because he was so relentless on his love for me. And he came from this big Irish family, and we started having kids right away, and like he was a beautiful dad, but the underlying mental health issues that he was, but other than the traumas of my childhood, understanding mental health he's a really big inspiration. He's no longer with us. So he's been almost 2 years. So we're at peace, but he was paranoid schizophrenic. He had severe bipolar disorder, and I really thought he was an alcoholic. But when he wasn't drinking, we had a couple of beautiful homes, and our kids went everywhere first class, and everything there was to be had, they had it. The best private schools and the birthday parties. I mean, my goodness, whatever I was lacking in my entire life, I poured into my children.
Mhm.
And as the years went by, and his mental illness started to take hold of us, and I just couldn't handle it, and things started to get, I just couldn't figure out how to keep it all together. So the more I kept buying more stuff, buying more investments, getting bigger bows for the kids, more cars, and all, it's like a frantic pace of keeping up the happiness and keeping up the the euphoria. It's almost a manic area of my life
Right.
because this was a hamster in a wheel.
How long did that chaos go on for?
Almost 20 years. Yeah,
Oh,
we almost 20
wow.
years.
I did
We
not
were
know that.
Yeah, we were married almost 20 years, and we had a huge automotive company that we got into partnerships with some big people in the automotive world. We made and lost millions and millions of dollars. And I think the financial losses really took a hold on him too.
Mm.
And yeah, and I don't want to get into his, I mean, we have a memory of the kids, and are recreating good memories of him. But and so I try not to dwell on the bad stuff, but some of the stuff is important because mental health, as I'm looking at it, is a completely shameless space. There's no place for shame when somebody is dealing with mental health. There's no place for shame when you're telling the truth, and when you own yourself, when you're brave and have the courage to tell the truth, which is something I'm recently learning. So
Yeah.
the big life, I mean, we belonged to Oakland Hills Country Club. We had a couple of houses. We did a lot of amazing things. And we helped a lot of people too. At one point, we had over 700 employees all over the country. So, I mean, I got really good at people business.
Right, right. And this is really what's driving you to do the mental health space, right? I mean, going back to school, getting a psychology degree, behavioral mental health, and then really taking it a step further. So I know this experience with your husband at the time was very difficult, even after you were divorced. I know that it had to have an effect on your children, which obviously affects you as a mother. So this must have been a pretty, would you say this was a monumental time in your life, like trauma-wise on the scale, like this is a really difficult time for you?
Yeah, it was monumental in that I realized like this could all go away like today, because I didn't realize how thin of a string that was holding it all together between him and me. And I just still hadn't dealt with the traumas of my earlier life. And I'm trying to raise my children. And it's somewhere in the middle there. I found my birth mom in Korea. I went to see her, and that was before I had children. So when I came back, got married, had children, I started to have all these feelings, and like I just couldn't process them. I didn't have the wherewithal to process the emotions and the feelings
Mhm.
coming through. So then it comes in just only ways that you have over autonomy over is what you do with your body. So I just didn't treat myself very well.
Right.
And in turn, I wasn't always a good mom. It's a hard thing to admit, but it's true.
You know, we're all on our own journey and none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect parents. And as long as we're learning along the way, that's really all that matters. And
That's
that
what my kids tell me. They're like, Miss Mom, we see you. We see you, girl.
it's
They're so funny. And
and
they're proud. So
and this is why I have a hard time with judgment. Okay, we'll just take a little break here on my judgment. I'm going to go off on a tangent because I really have a hard time with judgment because people don't know what you've been through, what I've been through, what this person's been through, with whoever. It doesn't matter. Everybody has their own stuff, their own trauma, their own things that they have gone through. So, you know, for us to sit and judge when we don't really know what that person has really have to endure their whole life or throughout their life, you know, I mean, seriously. And it doesn't give people a right to act a certain way because of their traumas. I mean, especially when you're learning from the trauma and you're
yeah.
working through your work, you're doing the inner work. And you know, because it's a journey, we're not going to heal and we're not going to transform overnight. This is the process, and everybody has their own timeline. So I
Yeah.
think it's really important. And I think it's beautiful that you're now like turning the corner and really learning more about yourself and your purpose and what's important to you. And I know that, you know, you had a big life for a while. Like tell our listeners about what your life was like in that time frame, and then take us into like the shift of, you know, quickly like how you shifted out of it and, you know, got into what you're doing now in the mental health arena.
Yeah, I mean, I got married another time, and that catapulted my life even further because the person I was married to was rather high profile. But even so, I mean, I regret some of my actions then because I just wasn't aware of myself. And I didn't realize that the sky wouldn't fall if I said no to some things just so that I could get myself centered. And I went 2 marriages down, and last, 3 years ago or so, I found my real dad, my birth father, the year I turned 50. And I have to say that was probably a very, very pivotal time in my life. Probably the most pivotal time other than having kids and stuff, because I realized for the first time in my entire life that there was a man who loved me and cared about my well-being and had demanded no price. Like he didn't demand, I didn't have to do anything but exist. And me existing was an extraordinary thing for him. And that, like, I never forget our phone conversation when he just said, very first time I heard his voice, just said, as long as we're both living on this planet, you will never be alone again. And it just flipped the switch in my head. And I gradually expected different things from the people who were in my life and people who claimed to love me, and I wasn't clear headed enough to really understand what they required of me, but I knew what I wanted out of whatever relationship I was in, whether it was romantic, sexual, friendship, business, whatever. And I just realized I shouldn't have to stand on my head all the time to keep y'all entertained in order for you to love me. For me to just stand here and exist should be okay.
Right.
And and throughout that, I mean, like you said, I had a really big life, and it was not like it wasn't big when I was married to Dan either. It was a very big life all the way around, country clubs and money and expensive purses and clothes and cars and all of trips and all of that. I mean, I can't remember. I mean, I can't count the times that we were having dinner with celebrities or being in situations. And one of my friends used to say, "How did two little brown girls get here? You little chai chai and me, little black girl," and you know. And we used to joke about it. And now I look back on it and then I see how self-deprecating that was, right? Like, what do you mean? How did we get here?
Right.
What did we come through to get here? Who all did we have to be nice to when we didn't want to be nice to? Well, how many events did we show up? How many people did we listen to? How much money did I spend that I couldn't afford? How much energy and love did I give out that I didn't get back because I thought I had to give that in order to earn a space here?
Right.
And it just,
So what was the pivotal point, Jessie? What was the pivotal point that kind of led you on this path that you're on now?
I got divorced because the marriage, I mean, it just, yeah, it got to a space where I couldn't sustain the life that I was living. And I couldn't keep all the balls up in the air at the same time. I literally was suicidal. I was just dying. It was just too much. And once I was out of the marriage and I was back in Michigan and my kids around me, and I have my number two kid was in school at the time, and somebody just, you know how you get those phone calls and they're like, "Are you ready to go into school?" And take this test. And I popped on and just did it, like just half-hearted. And it just, all of the mental health space came up, and it said on the aptitude, you should work in mental health. Your courage and your compassion and your heart and your mind, you would make an excellent mental health professional. And I was like, oh, ding, 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 ding.
Wow. Wow. How about
Yeah.
that for timing, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I just decided to do it in one afternoon. I didn't consult anyone. I didn't check to see if this was the right school. I didn't check any of that stuff. I'm just like, no, yes, 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 yes. And they gave me a bunch of money to go back. It turns out I'm kind of smart academically. They gave me a bunch of money to go back, and the age that I am, I got a bunch of grants too.
That,
And yeah, I was excited to be in a space where I wanted to learn something new. And my other degrees are in fine arts. So it's totally a different space. And
right.
it's
Right.
not
Oh
easy,
my
but
gosh.
it's very, very fulfilling.
And I also feel like with your personality and your compassion that you're going to do incredibly well. I mean, this is the beginning. I mean, don't you feel that way that like this is just the beginning? And
Yeah.
I know you have this passion for mental health and the stigma that is around it. And that's a large part of what you do because first of all, you've experienced it, you've lived it with people and you've seen what it does to yourself, your kids, to other people that love that person. I mean, you have so much experience behind you. So what better person to be an advocate for mental health than you,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I thank you. Thank you for saying that for one. And yeah, I come from a space of love and compassion backed by the science of what I'm actually learning. And a lot of the stuff I feel like I knew already, but it'll be nice to have the paperwork to show that, if I'm giving you my insight along with my life experiences, you have to trust that I'm coming from a good place and it's good information and it's worth a listen, you know?
Right. Well, I
Kind of
have,
like
what's that? I'm sorry.
kind of like you.
Yeah. Well, I have to believe though, Jesse, that your life has changed dramatically. I mean, from what it was, not only when you were a child, but even, like even the last 10 years, last 5 years, it has changed significantly. And I know when our lives change and we move on, sometimes, we have circles of friends, we have, people that we know that we're affiliated with our ex-partners or whatever it may be. And so life is different. It's a lot to adapt to. And I want to know, and we're going to take a break here, but on the other side of the break, I want to see how you've adjusted to this life, and what your thoughts are, and what were some of the pivotal moments, what were some of the key moments that you remember. And I want to talk a little bit about that and how things have changed for you. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to be back right after this break. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Hi everybody, I'm Sonna Johns, back with Up Close and Empowered with Jessie Elliott, and we are talking about glitter to soul.
Oh.
Talking about the big life to maybe a turn in a more purposeful direction at this point in the game, in your life.
Yeah, I think I was thinking it was interesting when we kept talking about the big life, right? But when I look back on it, this life right now is bigger than anything I've ever lived.
I love it. I love it. You're so
And
right. I love that.
it spans so many different genres of human beings. And I mean, the first thing in the morning, I could be, bringing a breakfast sandwich to the homeless person that lives on the corner. And then in the evening, I'm having, cocktails with the mayor talking about his new campaign, and like joining for his party. And it's just it's such a purpose driven life. All the other little things that used to like they were debilitating to me, like having somebody not liking my dress and talking about it on the radio. I mean, I was upset about that I think you remember, I was upset about that for like a month. I refused to talk to him. And like, how old am I? Like, I mean, not that those things are of zero importance, because those things are hurtful, and I have no like ill anything for the life I used to have or people I used to hang around with a lot. I have nothing bad about any of those things. It just no longer is aligned with who I am today, and I realize I don't owe anyone an explanation. I don't owe anyone any version of myself than what I'm comfortable of giving. And I just feel more, so my day, like I'm busy and my life is big in that, like I said, the genre of people spans such a wide berth. But at the same time, like I'm in tune with nature in ways that I never was. Like I pay attention and I don't have as many distractions. And, I mean, it's my goal to have my farmhouse and be able to do therapy there with my horses and my animals. And I want at least 5 more dogs because I only have 2. And I want a place where my grandkids can come and where all children can come. I may even adopt, I don't know. If somebody handed me a baby and said, Jessie, I would be like, yes, yes, and yes.
I believe it. I believe it because you are just full of life. You are, and you have such a big heart. So
Yeah,
I believe it.
well, they give me just like the whole fortitude and strength and gumption and energy in ways that no Birkin is ever going to be able to do for me, to be honest.
Right.
You know,
What do you want people to know about you? What do you think is maybe one of the biggest misconceptions? And if you could say, one thing that's really important for you to let people know about you, what would it be?
I want them to know that I'm not as wild as they think I am. I'm not the wild child. Maybe I was like for a time here and there, but I also want them to understand that I understand the wreckage I've left behind me in search for my salvation. I get it. And I will regret those for all of my life. And I think how I can make up for those things is living the life in an honest and intentional way, and leave the spaces better than I found them when I leave. And if whether it's 5 minutes with somebody at Starbucks that I just happened to chit chatting with, or a relationship that no longer serves me or that person, I hope that at the end of the day, that my presence in their life, they remember me with more smiles than tears. Does it make sense?
Yes. Yes. So impacting the lives of others in some way, shape, or form, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very cognizant of the wreckage behind me and what it costs to get here. And I'm just not going to let it go to waste.
But you're aware now. You are living a more conscious, intentional life now. And again, everybody has their own pace. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny. Like, I don't miss anyone, but at the same time, every now and then I'll be like, oh, so and so would have really gotten a kick out of this. Or,
Right.
geez, I know they really loved it when I made this particular dish. Because I still show my love with food. I'm really good at making bread now. But but yeah, so I know that I'm healing and I know that I'm healthier than I've ever been because I'm not in the space of revenge or, I'll show them and I'm gonna go do this. And I don't have any of that. I mean, of course I get miffed and sometimes my feelings get hurt when I hear certain things. But I listen to you, Sonna. I block out the noise because it's a white noise.
We're human and we know our value, and we come to a place of self-acceptance for some of the choices that we've made, and none of us are perfect. Nobody's perfect. We really aren't. So yeah, we have to just be at peace with ourselves. That's what it's all about. And it is a journey and it's a process and it takes some patience, but it's, as you know, it's rewarding. And I know that you've been able to feel that. So I'm really glad for you. What would you say is your biggest life lesson?
That I have the right to exist as I am, and so does everybody else. Like the right to take up space, right to be heard, at least once. Like
Right.
like purely unadulterated, unsanitized version of myself. Like good, the bad, the ugly, the funny, the clever, the charming, the sunshine.
Or
I
not needing the validation does that go along with it? Like not really needing
yeah,
to just be able to be authentically you and not have to have everybody's input or
yeah,
get
yeah.
this
I don't
agenda.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much of it I was doing. And it just feels good to be okay in the space. And it's nowadays, like I get invited to something, if I don't have the time, the energy, the money, whatever, like I'm not ashamed to say, hey, I can't do it this time. I'm sorry. Or I just don't have the energy for it. Or it's not in my budget. There's no shame in any of those things.
Right.
But
And I know boundaries. You've definitely stepped up on the boundaries. So that's really great. So as we're getting near the end of the show, I want our listeners to get an idea of what the exact space that you are getting into. I know that, part of what you're doing, and you can elaborate, is the sexual trauma aspect of psychology and what you're studying, and also just the whole mental health arena. So maybe we have a few minutes left. Just touch on that and what your dream is. What do you really want to do to help others, being that you've experienced a lot
yeah.
of this on your own?
Well, while I'm in school, I'm really deep in school now, and I work for a ketamine clinic called the Mind Reset. It's a ketamine clinic in Oak Park. We're in an ambulatory surgical center, so there's always a doctor there. It's an incredibly safe place where we do IV ketamine treatments, and we'll be getting Spravato in the next month. And it's a cutting edge treatment for mental illness. And when a person is depressed and traumatized, PTSD, ADHD, um, like chronic pain, postpartum depression, all of those things that are treatment resistant, ketamine has shown that it can be a very, very fast and impactful tool to help them heal. Like people feel something after the first treatment, like significant improvement. So that's the space I'm in because I'm working with people in the mental health space. I'm learning from the very renowned psychiatrist down to the social worker that's working at the psychiatric hospital I was at earlier today. And then sometimes I meet the patients and that when they come out of a treatment saying, I feel like there's hope now. And, thanks for telling me that story about you. I didn't realize that you had that going on in your life. It just like fills my heart so much.
Right. And
So
think about it. Think about the change. Like think about the 180 that has taken place here. I mean, seriously, the way your life was, and now how you dedicated yourself to learning and growing and helping people in the mental health space. I mean,
yeah,
It's huge. It really is. Like it's a really great story. It really is.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I think it gives people like that can be done. Like if she went from that to this, maybe I can get through this little stretch I got going on. Not minimizing anybody's life right now, but like maybe, or maybe they can say if she's been through all of that, she'll understand what I'm doing and why I made the decision I did or why I'm in this space I'm in. Maybe she'll have some ideas and whatnot. So yeah, it's my dream to be a safe space and be able to have a tangible impact. I mean, how many times have we gone to a gala where we were concerned with more about what we were wearing and who we're sitting with and what band they got to come from what top 40 charts than why we were there, you
Right.
know.
Yeah. You are just going to make a fabulous spokesperson for the mental health arena. I really see it. I really do. I really do.
I hope
Where,
so.
where can people find out more about this therapy? And if they wanted to reach out to you, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
So we have a website. It's mindresetwellness.com. And then under that same name, we have Instagram, we have TikTok and Facebook. And of course, my personal Facebook is the Hummingbird Lion because my kids nicknamed me that because the hummingbird is super tiny and moves about and does amazing things and takes care of everything. And then the lion, of course, because I'm like I'm a Leo, a big personality. So the Hummingbird Lion is my social media handle, and the Mind Reset, the ketamine clinic. We're in Oak Park, Michigan. You could just look us up, and I'm usually the one answering the phone.
Okay. And then, so they can get a hold of you that way if they have any, they have any questions. And then also, and we only have maybe 2 minutes left, but just quickly, I know that you mentioned that one of your focuses is also going to be on sexual trauma and how it
Oh,
influences the lives of people that have experienced that. So maybe put that out there so that if people want to reach out to you, they can
yeah.
get some direction.
Yeah, I am convinced that sexual trauma is the base of many, many wrongs in a person's life and the decisions that they make that impact the rest of their lives.
Mhm.
And I am studying it. I want to expand talking on it. I want to learn. I'm learning, I want to share. And I want to take the shame out of the whole infrastructure surrounding sexual trauma and human sexuality in general.
Right.
It's a very, very core part of us as human beings, and I don't think it gets enough of attention.
Right.
So yeah, and you can always call me, and we can talk more about it too.
Well, it has been so nice and just so pleasant talking to you today. And I just love your story because it's so diverse, right? I mean, from where you started, where it took you, and then now where you are, it's completely changed. And, I can, me, I can put myself in your shoes and know exactly like how these changes are. And it's a big change. And, for you to go back to school at this point in your life is huge. I mean, it's a true test to like your strong will because that's one thing you definitely have about you. You do not give up. You are not
No,
somebody that just says I'm giving up. It just doesn't even exist. You
I
have
owe it to everyone. I owe it to everyone that's ever believed in anything I was doing. I owe it to everyone who's ever loved me, even for a day,
yes.
that can't give up. And my kids more than everyone. But I want to leave Mind Reset's phone number. It's
Okay.
248-890-6377.
Say it again.
248-890-6377. Talk
Great.
about ketamine therapy with me.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jessie. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Join me next week as I will be speaking with Claudia Wyatt, and she is known as the Enthusiast Igniter. And she's really a great guest to have on the show for 2024. We're going to be talking about new intentions and goals, and you will be energized from this show for sure. So I will see you all, or I will hear, well, I'll see you. I'll see you. Yeah, I'll see you all next week. So thank you so much for listening. Have a great week, everybody.